All right, Shohei Ohtani here behind the reigning MVP's single home run last night. 7 innings also of one-run ball on the mound. So the Angels finally snapped a 14-game losing streak. Turns out it didn't take, listening to Nickelback songs as your walk-up songs. What it took was Shohei Ohtani. That skid, too, saw him fall from real playoff contention to 4 games below 500. They did beat the Boston Red Sox 5-2. Their first win since May 24th. Good grief. All right, we got DraftKings contributor Garion Thorne here and Rotowire's Erik Halterman for some batting practice. We're going to talk top DFS and Sportsbook plays for tonight's slate. Gentlemen, let's start with DFS here. Who are you looking at on the mound tonight, Garion?
Yeah, there's a lot of good pitchers at the top end of this slate, but I'm going to go with a guy who's sort of more in that middle class tier, and that's Aaron Ashby, who's $8,600. The Nationals aren't really a team that have struck out a ton this season. They've got some guys in that lineup that just are hyper elite contact hitters like Keibert Ruiz. However, I don't think any of that matters with Ashby. I'm not too concerned about opponent when it comes to Aaron Ashby's strikeout upside. This is someone who has 21 strikeouts in his last 12 innings thrown. It's really just about volume with Ashby, and he seems locked into that Brewers rotation right now. I don't think there are any concerns with his pitch count. Really, the only knock you can have on someone like Ashby is he walks too many opposing batters, which is a flaw, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, we're talking about someone who has, 2 off-speed pitches with a whiff rate exceeding 33%. We're talking about someone whose sinker induces a 64% ground ball rate. If I had to create a pitcher in a lab, I think he would look a lot like Aaron Ashby. So the fact you can get him at a price point sub 9K against a team that has the lowest isolated power in the National League, in the Nationals, a team that really doesn't pose that much of an offensive threat, I think you have to take Ashby every time.
Erik, who's your guy on the mound tonight?
Gary and I often end up in similar places, and we're at a similar place here, although technically not the exact same player. I'm going to go with Spencer Strider, who a lot of the things that can be said about Ashby can be said about Strider too. Strider's just a little bit less proven, and therefore he's also cheaper at just $7,000. He opened the year in a relief role like Ashby did, moved into the rotation in late May after looking excellent as a multi-inning reliever. Between the two roles, he's got a 2.76 ERA, and the ERA estimators more or less back that up. Even the more pessimistic ones are in the 290s. He's striking out a ton of guys. 36.8% strikeout rate is the best in the league among pitchers who have thrown at least 30 innings this season. He is walking too many guys. 13.5% walk rate is a problem. And there's a worry about his innings. In those 2 starts, he's topped out at 4 1/3. And it's tough to roster a pitcher in daily fantasy when he doesn't even have a chance to go 5 and get a shot at a win. But I think he can make that jump from 4 1/3 to 5 innings here because he gets the Pirates. It's just not that hard to go 5 innings against the Pirates. He probably doesn't even need to throw more pitches than he did in his previous starts. Pirates are 28th in the league in team WRC plus this season. So I think he gets even 5 innings and the win here and quite a lot of strikeouts to show for it.
All right, Garion, you got an infielder you're eyeing to roster tonight. You got 15 games on the main slate. You got every team in action.
Yeah, this is the first 15-game slate I can remember in a really long time. It's kind of fun, actually. I'm going to take Bo Bichette. I think there's a lot of guys on this Jays roster you could use tonight. They're the hottest offense in baseball. They seem like they finally come alive. And Elvin Rodriguez, just to quickly recap his last start, it was against the Yankees, so another really good team, but 11 hits, 10 earned runs, 4 home runs. He's one of a handful of Tigers starters who probably just shouldn't be pitching at the major league level right now, but they have to out of necessity. As for Bichette, since May 16th, he got off to a pretty slow start this season, but he's hitting .307 with a 284 ISO and a 173 WRC+. So he's basically been the version of Bo Bichette we've seen the last 2 seasons, just across this 100 plate appearance sample. So I think the Jays in general are going to score a lot of runs tonight. Bichette hitting out of that 2 spot is going to be a really, really nice play.
Yeah, boatload of decisions to make, boatload of choices. Erik, who's your infielder?
Yeah, yet again, we're going to end up in a similar place, although a different player. If you want an underperforming shortstop who's got a great matchup, how about Corey Seager at 4,800? He had just an 86 WRC plus through May 9th, but over the last month, It's up to 111, which is still below expectations for him, but I think he deserves better than his results on the season overall. Hitting just 223, but an expected batting average of 291. There are some issues, I think, with the expected stats this season in that the ball's moving differently, so expectations may need to be recalibrated. But when you see a gap that big, nearly 70 points, I think you should definitely take note of that. He's still got an 80th percentile hard hit rate and a 70th percentile strikeout rate, so he's still looking like quite a good hitter. And he'll get the platoon advantage against Davis Martin, which if either of you guys tell me that you know anything about Davis Martin, you're probably lying. His only qualification is that he's not Dallas Keuchel. He was a 14th round pick in 2018. He's 25 years old, started this season at the AA level. So not somebody the White Sox were counting on using much. Wasn't particularly impressive at the AAA level, 4.71 ERA in 4 starts, 4.35 ERA in his first 2 major league starts with just a 17.4% strikeout rate. I think it's an ideal matchup for Seager to start looking like the Corey Seager that we've come to know over the past several years.
All right, good stuff. Let's go to outfield. You got a play for us, Erik?
Yeah, let's go Byron Buxton, 4,900. He's the 19th most expensive outfielder on the slate, but he's tied for 8th in points per game. And that kind of discount makes sense in season long because we all know he's got some durability concerns. So that's not really an issue in a single game contest, unless I guess he gets hurt mid-game. But I don't think I'm planning my lineups around that. He's got a 149 WRC plus this season, and that could be even better. He's only hitting 231, but his expected batting average is about 30 points higher because his batting average on balls in play is just 224. When he is hitting the ball, he's hitting it incredibly hard. 15 homers on the season. He doesn't even have enough plate appearances to show up on the qualified hitter leaderboards, yet he's tied for 5th in homers. The 4 hitters above him have an average of 59 extra plate appearances on him. And of course, he homered twice last night. 4 homers in his last 5 games. Doesn't have an easy matchup here in Drew Rasmussen, but Garrett Cole wasn't an easy matchup either, and Buxton seemed to have no trouble there. So I like him whenever he's in the lineup. There is a risk that he sits tonight. There's always a risk that he takes a day off, but as long as he's in there, I think you're getting a bargain whenever he's below 5,000.
Gare Bear, I see your boy Aaron Judge listed at $6,300.
Yeah, look. Anytime Aaron Judge gets a lefty, you can use Aaron Judge.
Yeah.
But I don't want to go quite that high. Let's talk about Julio Rodriguez, or as Steve Buchanan calls him, future American League Rookie of the Year, Julio Rodriguez. He probably is that. He has been on absolute fire since the beginning of May. He's looked exactly like the kind of hitter that we're told Jared Kelenic was going to look like last season. So I'm glad one of these Mariners outfield prospects is working out for Seattle fans. But Julio's been fantastic, and he's been specifically great against left-handed pitchers. He's hitting 340 with a 176 WRC plus within the split. The lefty he gets tonight is Rich Hill, and I'm not a big BVP guy, but I will say I do like that he's seen Rich Hill. Because Rich Hill, as we know, is one of those classic crafty left-handed pitchers that can maybe throw a young hitter for a bit of a loop, but he faced the Mariners about 3 weeks ago, had a very bad start in that game, and Rodriguez actually went 2 for 2 off of Rich Hill in that spot. So I don't care so much about the 2 for 2. I just care that he's seen him before. He's not going to be tricked by anything Rich Hill is bringing to the table tonight, and that's all really Rich Hill has left is tricks. I'm just looking at this as Julio Rodriguez against a left-handed pitcher, and in that spot, I always want to use Julio Rodriguez.
42 years young, Rich Hill. How about a value play tonight, Garion?
Well, Erik mentioned we are often on the same page, and we were on the same page just a little bit earlier. I'm going with Strider as my value play. I won't spend too much time on this because Erik laid it out beautifully, but I will say 2 things that he did not mention. 1, 87 pitches was that last outing for Strider. So if we are talking about getting him to that 5-inning benchmark, I think you can probably say he's fully built up and could go 100 pitches. So even with the walks kind of eating up some of that efficiency, I think he does get to 5 innings tonight. And also, Strider brings so much strikeout potential by himself. We don't necessarily have to mention this, but the Pirates, the highest strikeout rate in baseball across the past 2 weeks, up over 27%. We could see some ridiculous strikeout numbers from Strider tonight.
Erik, who's a good value play?
I like Joey Votto at 3,900. Not quite a bargain basement kind of guy, but he's priced as if his season-long 109 WRC plus is all who he is, and that's not all he is. He was awful to start the season, a 31 WRC plus before he came down with COVID in early May. Over that stretch, he had a 32% strikeout rate, barrel rate under 7%. Just looked completely lost. But since he's returned, a 200 WRC plus, that barrel rate's all the way up at 17.6%, and the strikeout rate's down to 18%. We're seeing some of the best Joey Votto we've ever seen. He's riding an 8-game hitting streak right now, too. I think he also changed his bat. He was experimenting with a new knob on the end of his bat. He's, famously a constant tinkerer, and I guess that tinkering just didn't work, but he's already moved past it, and he's looking like a totally different player now. If that first stretch didn't happen and he just started the year in late May when he returned from the COVID-19 injured list, he'd be a lot more expensive than 3,900 here, especially against Andre Palante. Not a particularly big prospect. Spent most of the year in relief. Has a very good ERA, but none of the ERA estimators back it up. A 1.23 ERA, but most of the ERA estimators are above 4. Doesn't really strike out anybody. Walks too many guys. He's just a ground ball pitcher. I think Votto should be in for another good day here.
All right, we'll take everyone home with this in our MLB segment. Which game are you looking to target for a bet, Gare Bear?
I'm going to go back to that Toronto-Detroit game and just take the over 9. The Jays by themselves have been averaging about 6.7, 6.8 runs per game their last 16 games. So they might even just get here by themselves. I mentioned how bad Elvin Rodriguez's last start was against the Yankees. But it's also worth noting Jose Barrios, despite coming off setting his new career high in strikeouts out of seemingly nowhere in his last start, this is someone who has the just expected statistics of like a 55-year-old man. He's just lost it this season. It's very strange. He's sitting 3rd percentile in expected ERA and 2nd percentile in opponent expected slugging percentage. So I think the Tigers, even though their offense has been very underwhelming so far this season, I think they can score 3 or 4 runs tonight as well in what should be a really high-scoring game.
All right, Erik, a game you are looking to target for a bet.
I think Marlins plus 135 at the Astros is interesting. You might think the Astros have a far better lineup, although it hasn't actually played out that way this season. They rank 6th by Team WRC+, but the Marlins rank 9th. And the gap between the pitchers, I would say, pretty easily goes the Marlins' way, even though I do like Luis Garcia for the Astros, although his 3.07 ERA comes with a set of ERA estimators that are much closer to 4. He's basically a league average strikeout guy, doesn't walk too many guys, doesn't actually keep the ball on the ground all that well. So not a really exciting set of peripherals. Pablo Lopez, on the other hand, you wouldn't say has exciting peripherals either. He's just solidly above average across the board, and there aren't many guys like that. A 26.1% strikeout rate, 6.6% walk rate, 46.8% ground ball rate. Only 2 qualified starters beat all 3 marks this season. That's Frankie Montas and Shane McClanahan. He's just one of the best all-around, doesn't seem elite at anything, but just gets the job done. That 2.18 ERA is better than his peripherals suggest he deserves, but the ERA estimators are in the low 3s there. I think he's a good deal better than Garcia. I think this should be a lot closer to a coin flip. I like the plus 135 here for Miami.